So PolitiFact has just done a fact check of their 1,000th statement of Donald Trump. They've been doing fact checks on him ever since 2011 when he started the birther movement against Obama. And they've never reached this number of fact checks on any one candidate before. This is a new record they've set.
Because they're biased, Phil.
Yeah, I know, because they're coming after my Christian values. What they've learned, looking back over 1,000 fact checks, is about 76% of Donald Trump's statements that they researched earned ratings of mostly false, false, or pants on fire, false. And if you want to know what pants on fire, false means, it means not just false, but ridiculous. You know, like the statement, windmills cause cancer, or his statement, I've been known to be a strong Christian all my life. You know, things that are patently on the surface ridiculous. It's not unusual for politicians of both parties to mislead, exaggerate, or make stuff up, but American fact checkers have never encountered a politician who shares Trump's disregard for factual accuracy. Trump stands alone for his share of rated statements that are some degree of false. About 76% of his statements earned ratings of mostly false, false, or pants on fire. In fact, his median rating for his 1,000 fact checks is false. They don't have any other, that's the median. It's just false. Not pants on fire, false, but false. And then they list a whole bunch, like all the recent Democratic presidents and Republican presidents and Democratic and Republican speakers of the House. And all of them are at least, like at the worst, are partly true in their average. Partly true, not necessarily completely true. In fact, someone did I remember during 2016, the debates between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And I've tried to use this to try to explain how unusual he is in his lying, because some people would say, yeah, all politicians lie. Don't tell me it doesn't matter if Trump lies, because all politicians lie. The debates were fact-checked very rigorously, however many debates he had with Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton, in the course of the 2 or 3 debates, made 14 false or misleading statements. Okay, and you think, well, that's not great. I'd prefer if it was 0 false or misleading statements. She made 14. Using the exact same standard in the exact same debates, Donald Trump made 110 false or misleading statements. So and this is what all the fact checkers have noted, he is in a class by himself. But there has never been a politician who is so willing to say things that are obviously false and just assumes that he can get away with saying things that are obviously false. Like when he used to call the newspapers, when he was building Trump Tower, and he would call the New York newspapers and pretend to be someone else to say lies about who was considering moving into Trump Tower to get in the gossip pages of the newspapers. And finally, the editors of the gossip pages in the New York newspapers compared notes and said, did you have a guy named this who sounded a little like Donald Trump call you about? And they all realized it was him, and he was just messing with them. He was just lying to get things. Like he called the newspaper and said, there's a rumor that Princess Diana may take an apartment in Trump Tower. And like, oh, wow, that's big news. Thank you. What's your name? George. Oh, thank you, George. And so they would run it in the news, and then people would get excited about Trump Tower. That's what he does. And he's been doing it, that's in the 80s. He's been lying since the 80s. And when I say, hey, he lies, people say you just don't like him because he's a Republican and you've now become a radical socialist cultural Marxist. Yes. I'm kind of worked up about this.
I can tell.
Because of all the people that say, oh, you just don't like mean tweets. No, he lies 5 times before breakfast. And many of his lies generate mistrust and hate towards marginalized people.
Okay. Trump is who Trump is. He's not going to change. He's been this way, as you put it, since the 80s. There's no mystery here. I think the bigger problem is not Donald Trump. The bigger problem is there's a vast segment of the U.S. popular media, mainstream media, as well as the algorithms, as well as huge segments of the Republican Party that simply don't report this. His own political adversaries within the Republican Party don't talk about this, with the exception of Chris Christie during the primaries. Fox News doesn't report this stuff. And the algorithms, if you're in a conservative MAGA ecosystem online, you're not going to hear any of this stuff. So it would make sense to say, well, of course, all politicians lie and Trump's a politician. He's going to exaggerate, whatever. No big deal, because they don't see this. There was it Bonnie Christian's story recently where she was talking to her grandmother about when the story came out about the sexual assault, the Access Hollywood tape back in 2016. And she brought it up to her grandmother before the election. And her grandmother's like, what are you talking about? I've never even heard of this. Like,
Right.
The failure is not Donald Trump. He's this force of nature that's crazy. It's all the people who are making him palatable and acceptable to huge segments of the American population. That's where the culpability lies.
Okay, I hear you. I'm amazed at the brazenness of, and the one that just stuck out to me the most was he had just accepted. It was either won the nomination or had just won the presidency. I forget. And Anderson Cooper was interviewing him live on TV, national TV, and brought up his tax returns. That he says, I won't release my tax returns because I'm under audit. And Anderson Cooper said, finally said, well, why are you under audit? Says, I'm under audit every year. I don't know. They audit me every year. He says, why do you think that is? And you could see his wheels turning for a second. What can I say that would be good for me? And he said, well, I've always been known as a very strong Christian. So he saw and this is amazing, the calculus. It's like, how can I use this opportunity to win what I want? And I want conservative America to love me, think I'm one of them. So I will say, not just say, he said, I've always been known as a very strong Christian. So not just to say, I've always considered myself a very strong Christian, or I strive to be a very strong Christian, but to say, people have always known me to be a very strong Christian, which is, if you don't know his history, if you don't know that he, builds casinos and fills them with strip clubs, and that he cheats his subcontractors, and, that he lies 5 times before breakfast, if you don't know that, and you hear people have always known me to be a very strong Christian, there's a sense that, other people know that he is. I didn't know that, so now I know. And he knows that works. And so he does it, even when it's obvious that anyone who's paid attention to him since the 80s, that he's never, of all the things he has been known for, being a strong Christian has never been something that he's been known for.
But he got a 2-for-1 out of that, because not only does he claim something ridiculous, but he also claims the victim card, that I'm being persecuted by the IRS for being a strong Christian.
Because I'm a Christian, which means, by the way, the IRS would come after you too if you're a strong Christian. Yeah. And so I need to be president so I can protect you and I can protect Christianity. So it was like he found 5 different ways to take that simple question, why do you think you're audited so much by the IRS? And make it twist people into the place he wanted them to be.